All right. Hi, everyone. Excited to have all of you here. Let's just give it like a minute or two for everyone to trickle in, and then we'll get started. Uh, Emilia, just in the meanwhile, where are you based?
I'm based in London.
Based in London. All right. Must be like, oh, yeah, afternoon time over there, right? Around 2 o'clock?
2 p.m. Yeah, exactly 2.
3 p.m. Got it. And Userpilot is more of a diversified remote sort of a organization or headquartered in the US, I guess.
Yeah, headquartered in the US. We have 3 offices. We have a European office in Dublin, and the US office is in Austin, Texas. And then we have one R&D office in the Middle East.
Oh, okay, Middle East. Oh, I didn't. Oh, that was not expected. Okay, got it. Is it in
Yeah,
United
yeah, the
Emirates?
founders are.
Okay, founders.
No, it's in Ramallah. Yeah, the founders are from there.
Got it. Got it. Understood. Understood. Cool. So I think we'll probably just give it 30 more seconds, Emilia, just to get started.
Sure, sure.
And yeah, so it's 7:32 in India time. So
Getting late. Where are you based?
I'm in Bangalore. So have you ever
Uh-huh.
been to India?
I have, yeah. I've been to New Delhi.
Ah, okay, okay. Yeah, so I'm
Based
in
New Delhi.
Bangalore right now. I travel quite a bit to US, but yeah, mostly based out of Bangalore. For factors like a majority of the team is actually in Bangalore as well.
Cool.
And yeah, that's where I am. Cool. I think we can get started. Hey everyone, thanks a lot for making it for the session. Really excited to have Emilia, join us and share her journey on how she set up ABM for Userpilot. Just a heads up, I think there was, we are facing some connectivity issue at Emilia's side. So if at all you see a challenge in terms of the audio or video, just give it some time. Just wanted to give that heads up to the audience as well. Emilia, firstly, thanks a lot for taking the time out and agreeing to do this session and share all your learnings openly with the group over here. I really appreciate it. Let me just hand it over to you to just give a quick introduction about yourself and get things started.
Thank you so much for having me, Praveen. So I've been the head of marketing, now VP of marketing at Userpilot for quite a few years now. I joined it over 5 years ago when we were still a very small team. Now we have over 100 employees and offices in 3 countries, so it's getting exciting. Um, yeah, Userpilot is a product growth platform. So essentially, we're targeting product, UX, customer success, support, engineering teams, like a broad range of personas, helping them understand what their users are doing inside their app, both with product analytics and session replays, and then act on these insights with in app onboarding, in app engagement experiences, and also collect feedback from their users directly with in app surveys inside their product. So, large horizontal SaaS platform now, going heavily up market. So, you know, um, we are not a startup solution really. It's a solution for more mature companies that already have a product team and UX team, right, and are prioritizing that in-app experience, which is one of the reasons why we turned to ABM, right? Because that is a strategy that allows you to target like specific audiences, specific accounts, specific, company sizes and verticals.
Got it. And everyone, just by the way of introductions, my name is Praveen. I'm one of the founders of Factors. I take care of product and marketing at Factors. About Factors, we are also a 4-year-old company. Right now, we work with over 400 customers globally. And we are largely in the ABM and account analytics space. And we work very closely with our customers to power more efficient advertising on LinkedIn and Google, in addition to helping them unify all of their account data and figure out which accounts are actually interested in what you have to offer. So that's very briefly about me. Emily, I had one follow-on question about Userpilot. So are you mostly focused on like B2B companies or more B2C companies like mobile applications, etc.? Could you talk a little bit about that?
No, so far we've been mostly focused on B2B SaaS companies. We do have, onboarding for mobile native mobile apps, push notifications, etc. So this is a fairly new feature as well. So now we are expanding into B2C mobile apps, but primarily we were focused on B2B so far.
Got it. So primarily B2B, and within that, software as a service companies was your sort of ICP. But in terms of persona, what you mentioned was it's a very broad spectrum of personas ranging from developers, UX teams, product managers, customer success. Did I cover
Correct.
all the main ones?
Yeah, correct. It's pretty segmented. So the product team is still our largest persona among our users, but it is otherwise we do have users from many different departments, from marketing, for instance. Some marketers use Userpilot to promote educational resources or webinars or any sort of promotional stuff to their users inside the apps, so inside their product. So this is one use case. We have, of course, customer success that educates their users with, the resource center and integrated knowledge base. So yeah, it is a broad spectrum of personas, which makes it challenging for marketing, because you have to speak about different use cases to these people, and you speak a different language. They have different problems. So yeah, we tackled that to an extent in our ABM strategy, but this is something definitely we're going to touch upon, how we structure the campaigns with that in mind.
Yeah, I think that would be very interesting to cover in terms of, as you said, everything for each of these personas is different, right? Like a product manager would be interested in certain jobs to be done, what they care about vis-a-vis like a marketer. So something that we'll definitely kind of come back to. Emilia, so just to get started, so you mentioned you've been with Userpilot for over 5 years. So when you started out, what was the sort of primary go-to-market channel? How were you acquiring customers? Has your ICP actually evolved over time? I expect it would have. But could you talk us through that journey of 5 years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I didn't start as the head of marketing or an executive at Userpilot. I started as a regular marketing manager at this point. And, for the first year, we were still very early stage. I wouldn't say there was one coherent strategy. We were testing a lot of channels and a lot of approaches. And after a year of such testing, almost a year, what stuck was SEO content. So SEO content at that point was bringing around 70% of marketing qualified leads. So demo bookings, trial signups. And when we noticed that, we decided to double down on that because it seemed like the most scalable, predictable channel compared to the other channels we were at that point using. So, we tried webinars, we tried Quora, we tried Reddit. Of course, we are, still running Google Ads, right? So we tried paid, but none of the other channels we were experimenting with were bringing such a return on investment as content. So
Got
SEO
it.
specifically.
So SEO was the primary strategy at that time, and that continued for the next 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, it still continues. So we're still investing a lot in SEO content. The challenge is as you go up market and your ACV grows, so you become a more expensive, more robust solution targeting only large specific companies, it becomes challenging to scale the quality of the leads with just inbound organic traffic. because you can't control who searches for certain keywords. Yes, to some extent, you know that like the more niche, sophisticated keywords are more likely to be searched for by sophisticated audience, and that this audience is likely to work in companies that have a mature product team. But this is not always the case, right? It's also students that are searching for certain keywords. It's also like startup founders that are searching for these keywords. So there is a lot of noise. And at some point it's hard to scale. Also now with AI in the equation, AI has really turned the table stakes for the last 2 years. And AI overviews, AI chatbots, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, and some of our audience has moved directly into searching for answers inside these chatbots. And unlike with SEO, it's extremely hard to control, right? Like what answers the chatbots, the AI chatbots actually generate, right? So like even though we've been still investing in organic content growth and we haven't been particularly hit, at least not long term, it's not scaling linearly anymore. So it's not like it used to be that we were seeing this predictable linear growth for two reasons. One is that the audience clicks a lot less because they're getting instant answers from AI overviews, or they often use chatbots instead of Google. And the second reason is that, the audience that still does click, like some of them, we have to disqualify or they disqualify themselves because the solution has become too expensive for them.
Got it. And in this process, did your ICP also change? I think you mentioned you're moving up market. So I'm presuming that happened during those 5 years.
Yeah, of course. So, our product and engineering team are amazing. So they have been putting out so many features and the product is changing and developing so fast that I would say every 6 months it feels like a different product. So we suddenly found ourselves competing with much, much bigger players in the market, like companies that are, billion-dollar companies like Pendo, and we are not being compared to like the small startup solutions. We are being compared to these large, very enterprise solutions. Of course, what had to come hand in hand is like us as a company becoming enterprise ready. So we obtained all the like relevant security certificates, SOC 2, Type 2, HIPAA, etc., etc. We had to change a lot as a company in terms of the kind of services we provide, the sales process, offering RFPs and POCs and, working with procurement. So this was all like a big change. And that definitely motivated us to look for another strategy that would allow us to target these larger companies that have the budget and that understand and can really utilize the value of a robust solution.
Got it. And just to kind of, let's say, I'm assuming this was maybe around 1 year back that you kind of said, okay, we need to find out a new strategy. Would that be right?
Yeah, that would be a pretty accurate timeline.
Right.
Yeah.
And would you be able to kind of talk about some of the internal conversations? How did, who drove this change to say, hey, I know SEO has worked? Because a lot of companies actually struggle. Like, you have one channel which is really working for you. It's been bread and butter for so long. How do you actually then, move to like a new strategy, right? So how did that happen? Was it something that, you came up with as a plan, or was that something that everyone kind of said, no, we need to find a new strategy now?
Yeah. So, okay. So it wasn't just like a year ago that we figured out, hey, we need to start doing something else and diversifying our marketing strategy. Obviously, relying just on one channel is risky. So we were looking into diversification before, and we had several attempts at cold outbound, right? And with like different degrees of success. We did manage to, of course, generate some pipeline, some interest, and win some deals from outbound. but the results weren't as good as we expected. So, like per BDR, the BDRs were booking a lot fewer meetings than their quota. It was very resource intense, very laborious, very hard and demoralizing for the team, and kind of didn't feel like it's scalable and sustainable the way it was. So around that time, our CEO actually, we became aware of the ABM strategy, and he like really pushed me to, explore it and to implement it properly. Because I was kind of like, flirting with ABM, but never really properly got around to, okay, hey, we need to go through these growing pains and align the whole marketing team towards that goal. Because previously, like the marketing team was pretty siloed, I would say. The content team was working on content. The demand gen team was working on other resources like webinars, whatnot, right? The paid team was working on cold search ads. And yes, of course, we were still catering to the same persona, but there wasn't any like this kind of overall alignment that we work in campaigns, right? And that we push something out that is cross-functional, that involves, both organic content and, like other types of content, for instance, webinars, for instance, videos, influencer interviews, that involves paid, both inbound and, like outbound. I would call it outbound paid, right? So, say LinkedIn ads that target these companies we haven't reached out to yet, versus inbound retargeting. We didn't have like that level of alignment before exploring ABM and implementing it properly. So our CEO definitely was critical for pushing me to explore it, because as usual, I was so deep in the woods and in the details that I didn't even like realize, oh, this is happening. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. Now, just to kind of move forward, I think just to get the real tactical advice that I think everyone here is for. So once you started like your ABM journey, so what were the initial sort of roadblocks and challenges? How did you kind of get started to say, okay, this is the plan, this is what we'll do?
Yeah. The initial challenge was like deciding how are we going to run it, what platforms, what tools. Like my first steps were, to do some literature review and learn more about how people structure their ABM strategy. So what I found most helpful, I read a bunch of books. I read books from like Terminus and Sixth Sense, CMOs. And yeah, like I found these resources helpful to an extent, but also very high level. I spent around, 6 weeks, 2 months reviewing different platforms for ABM, dedicated platforms, and understanding, how ABM works from their perspective. And what I found was that most of these tools leverage their own private advertising networks and collect, intent signals that are anonymized and then, like de-anonymized using, for instance, reverse IP lookup or clickstream from these private advertising networks to link the clicks on the ads they place on different publishers to specific companies. Our experience with display ads on the Google, display ad network was very underwhelming, I would say. We have a top-notch performance marketer. If Tiana is watching it, wanted to high five her on the team. So it wasn't like a problem with us not cracking the code. I think the problem was with the placements and also how, unfortunately, infested the advertising networks are with bots, with, like noise. We tried excluding lists of IPs that we knew were like click farms, etc. But we were still seeing a lot of noise and very, very low conversion. And when we compared the placements that these companies were offering on their advertising networks, the overlap with the Google advertising network was very high. So we were like, we would be paying these platforms for essentially like packaging the same as we have on Google, and maybe, helping us set up the stages and push the ads out. But in fact, the placements would be largely very similar because, there are only so many of these large industry publishers, right? There is Forbes, there is, Washington Business Journal, whatnot, right? And a lot of these tools basically tap into the same publishers. And there are, of course, some niche sites as well in the network, but that was it. So that was the first thing that put us off. The second reason was, of course, the price of these solutions. So a lot of them were super, super expensive. We're talking about tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we haven't even started. So that onus of responsibility would be on me for spending so much budget on a platform that potentially wouldn't meet our requirements. So I wanted to start small and not over-invest. And so we took the first steps to LinkedIn and decided to run our first pilot program with just LinkedIn ads, and then layer display advertising on top of it by just using retargeting of the landing pages, the traffic to the landing pages that were linked to the LinkedIn ads, and on the Google Display Ad Network and YouTube and Gmail. So that was the original idea, that with LinkedIn, we could use matched audiences. So we could literally upload a specific list of contacts to be sure that they are going to see that this will be really the people that are seeing the ads rather than, some bots and, the reverse IP lookup just playing tricks on us. We also know that, a lot of people working remotely, a lot of companies just like us, because we're targeting mid-market companies. We're not targeting Amazon, right? We're not targeting Meta. So we're targeting companies between 50 and 1,000 employees. That is the sweet spot. These companies are very, geographically dispersed oftentimes. We don't believe that in our case, this would work so well.
Got it. Understood. So the basic setup was LinkedIn ads as the primary channel, driving traffic to certain landing pages, and then from there remarketing to those users on Google Display, YouTube, and Gmail. I'd love to kind of go deeper into which of those has worked best for you, Display, YouTube, Gmail. But before we go into the channel and even what kind of creatives and offers were you putting out on LinkedIn, how did you decide to build that list? So you mentioned 51 to 1,000 employees. That's a pretty broad segment, right? Even if you were to filter for B2B, I'm assuming when you went into, let's say, ZoomInfo or Apollo and put that list criteria in, you would have got a lot of companies. So how did you go about building that list?
Yeah, so that wasn't, of course, the only criterion. That was, and again, it was a cross-functional exercise. So I didn't build that list. That list was built by our operations. We made some mistakes with list building, which I'm going to mention. We overfitted the sort of model of building the list. So there was still roughly 14% of bad fit companies, and then we had to manually exclude. But the first step was to decide on what campaigns we're actually going to run. And that was based on our product launches. So what do we want to build awareness about in the market in the first place? So say, as I mentioned at the beginning, we launched Userpilot for mobile apps. So we have mobile app onboarding, engagement, surveys, and analytics now. So we need to make sure that, the market gets that. So that was already one criterion, that, for instance, for this specific campaign, we need companies in this size, and we need companies that also have mobile apps. So not only, web apps, but for other campaigns, for instance, our main user is still a web app SaaS company. So companies that we know have a web app are very important. But then how do we segment them further? Now, geography, that's simple. 75, 80% of our customers are based in the US. This is also the best fit for us. So we primarily looked at US and English-speaking countries. We do a win-loss analysis every 6 months. So we review the deals that we won and the deals that we lost for growth and enterprise plans. So we look at similarities. We look at what were the most popular use cases. What was the tech stack of the companies that were considering Userpilot? Why were they considering Userpilot? So based on that, we also defined the technographic profile of these companies. So for instance, we knew that companies that are using session replay tools, analytics tools, and other engagement tools are likely to want to explore a solution, a comprehensive solution like Userpilot, because it would allow them to consolidate their tech stack, reduce costs, and also reduce the data silos between different teams using 3 different tools, and then have to somehow patch it all together. So we looked at that kind of value props, the features that we want to promote, again, value proposition we want to promote in the different campaigns. And then we sliced and diced our total sales addressable market, or our total addressable market into sales addressable market, and further sliced it and diced it by common denominators that would allow us to segment them into specific ABM campaigns.
Got it. And you mentioned that you did make some mistakes. You overfitted. 14% was not a great fit. So could you talk a little bit about that? How could someone avoid making that same mistake?
Yeah, so I think the reason why we made this mistake was because we started from the broad criteria and we kept narrowing it down. Okay. So first we started from looking at companies that are based in the US, that are a certain employee size, revenue, that use certain, how do we define if the company has a web app and is a SaaS company, for instance? Okay, so we were looking for certain hallmarks that indicated this is a company that has a web app and is user-facing. It's not a developer tool, for instance, that only has API, because then it wouldn't need engagement solution. Okay, so we needed to find that out at a massive scale, right? Because there were tens of thousands of companies in the total addressable market, and it wouldn't be possible to go through each website and identify whether it has a web app or not. So we used tokens hey, does it have a login, right? Does it mention SaaS solution on their homepage? Does it have a free trial somewhere on their homepage, which indicates it's a product-led company, which is an even better fit for us. And unfortunately, because we were using OpenAI API to identify these hallmarks of good fit, sometimes it identified them in companies that were still a bad fit, like communities, like agencies servicing SaaS companies that had a login area. This could be a translation company, for instance, that allowed its customers to maybe interact with the team and for a dedicated client portal. So there were a few of these cases where the company still had these hallmarks and still was a bad fit. This is very, very hard to do at scale. What we would have done otherwise now, right, in order not to have to then manually go through the companies that fitted into the SAM and exclude the ones that were a bad fit, would be to start from the good fit companies that are already our customers and create a lookalike audience first. Okay, so with APIs of tools like Ocean.io, for instance, that's what we used in Clay for actually trying to find more of the good fit companies after removing the bad fit ones. Is that you then can take this lookalike list and then narrow it down by the geographic, size, and technographic criteria.
Got it. So take the good fit companies and then do a lookalike and then narrow it down further. Versus you had initially started with let's find product-led companies, and when you started looking for some of these keywords like login, etc., that is where some of the spillage happened. Understood.
Yeah, exactly.
And once you did this exercise, finally, how many companies did you shortlist for this program?
Just under 10,000.
Just under 10,000. Okay, got it. Okay. Now, moving a step forward, so I understood like you mentioned, what do we want to promote? Like, what are the offerings and what is the value proposition? Working backwards from that, the audience, because you had a new value proposition coming up, so that would have been catered to, that would be catering to a certain set of companies vis-a-vis what you already had as a standard value prop. Finally, around 10,000 companies. And were you advertising to 10,000 companies with job titles on LinkedIn, or you actually fetched the contact profiles? You mentioned something about fetching contact profiles and doing that.
Yeah, so we actually changed our targeting strategy during, like this time we've been doing ABM so far. So initially, because we already had contact lists from called outbound era from the past, 2 quarters. The companies that we didn't manage to convert from cold outbound that we believe are still a good fit, we already had all these contacts to like the right fit personas there. And at that point, we were using Apollo and we had a really good enterprise deal with them. So we could pretty much fetch unlimited number of emails. And it was, we felt it was worth it to do so. And we also structured our campaigns. We broke our campaign groups by personas. So we thought, hey, since we have these different user personas in each account, let's create separate campaign groups for each persona, right? To try to talk about even the same thing, let's say mobile or let's say session replay, but for this specific persona, okay? Because an engineer will be using session replay to find bugs, for instance, right? But maybe a UX designer will be looking for like bottlenecks in the user experience, okay? So there were different perspectives. So we split the contact lists by persona and basically funneled each persona list into a different campaign group that then consisted of campaigns. Obviously, LinkedIn limits, like how many, you can only have one inventory type in one campaign. So we had to have a separate campaign for images for like this persona for this specific intent. So it became like layers and layers of complexity, so to say. But this backfired against us because the whole goal of organizing these, campaigns by persona and by intent was to scoop out who is engaging with our ads. So maybe I can actually share my screen to show the campaign structure.
Yeah, that would
If
be
that
awesome.
makes sense. And how it changed, because then we decided that we're not getting enough signals because the lists are for some companies so small that we're not able to glean any insights from LinkedIn from that. And our CPMs were very high because the lists with matched audiences, like for a specific persona, were really quite small. So it was becoming expensive. So can you
Are
see
you
my
trying
screen?
to share? No, not yet. Just one
No.
second.
I am
Just
sharing
one
on my
second. Let
end.
me.
It says I'm sharing. Maybe.
Okay, just one second. Emilia, maybe you can just talk through it. In the meanwhile, it'll just come up. Just give me 1 second. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Actually, could you talk through the structure you were mentioning? So there was the intent, which is at what state? Yeah, it's just coming up now.
Okay,
Yeah, it's
so
coming
the
up.
old ABM campaign structure. All right, let me know when you can see it. The old
Yes, can
ABM
see it.
campaign structure was perfect. The old ABM campaign structure was basically, as I mentioned, based on personas, right? And then for each persona, we had a campaign group. And then within each persona, we had actually multiple campaigns, right? But also the campaigns were, like obviously grouped by inventory type. So we had a campaign for images, we had a campaign for videos, but then we had separate like single image campaigns for different intents. Okay. So like all-in-one intent versus growth, experimentation, A/B testing versus product analytics and event tracking. These were all just image campaigns for different personas, for different intents. So
Got it.
I hope you're following. This is like already quite complicated. As you can see, we had tons and tons of campaigns for every campaign
And
group.
and I'm
Yeah,
presuming you had different campaigns for different types of assets. So videos would have been a different campaign again for
yes,
the same intent. Hmm,
exactly.
got it.
So in every persona, we could have, like, let's say we wanted to target 3 personas and we wanted to check if this persona is interested in like the all-in-one value proposition, product analytics, or session replay. Okay. So already 3 intents times, let's say we have 5 inventory types, that's 15
Hmm,
campaigns for
hmm,
just one persona, times 3 personas, that's already 45 campaigns in just this one ABM campaign for just this
hmm,
one stage. Because,
hmm,
remember, we also arranged everything by funnel stages. So we had the awareness stage ads, which were more about like capturing attention, talking about the problem, but not pushing for using the product so much. Then we had the interested stage. We were already talking more about the solution, and the consideration stage ads, which are more talking about the product, pushing people to sign up for the trial and book a demo, showing testimonials from similar companies, from our customers, etc., etc. So just in this example, 3 personas, 3 use cases, 5 inventory types. That's 45 campaigns per stage times 3 stages. Okay, so we have like 135, if I'm not
5
wrong,
campaigns. Yeah,
campaigns for
yeah.
just this one ABM campaign. This was just too much. And why it was too much? Like from the beginning, we wanted to know like what is the intent for this
Hmm,
persona. That's why we were showing them 3 different intents. Initially for this, we were looking for solutions like Dream Data, but they couldn't push that information to HubSpot. So it wouldn't be actionable for us, for our BDRs to, for instance, personalize their outreach based on these intent signals. Um, we were looking into Fibbler. We didn't even know about factors at that point. Fibbler, again, wasn't pushing that information into HubSpot. At some point, we started building our own internal solution for this, which we now have, which allows us to see basically, we called it Zen ABM, which allows us to see how many companies are engaging and which companies are engaging with which campaign and campaign group. Right. So here, this is the overview for campaign group, like session replay and analytics. The value proposition for this one is all-in-one multi-channel. We can see the companies that engaged with this specific campaign group, how many times, etc., etc. And the same for campaigns. Previously, we encoded the intent on campaign level, not campaign group
hmm,
level, because the campaign groups were in turn dedicated for different personas. We found
hmm,
that this level of granularity is too much for us to actually capture much meaningful intent, because
hmm,
LinkedIn obfuscates data within any time period that you query LinkedIn API. It does not return any results if the clicks happened from fewer than 3 members in the company in this audience. Okay. But
hmm.
since we segmented each audience by persona, and the requirement was that at least 3 people in this persona in this company had to click within this period of time for LinkedIn API to return anything. As you can imagine, Praveen, like LinkedIn wasn't returning much data because
Yeah,
in
yeah. I
some
presume
companies, yeah,
your click counts would have been very low, I presume.
yeah, it
When
was
you
in theory, even if it might have been higher in practice.
Yeah.
right? We didn't see that because in some companies, there just weren't enough people to even meet these criteria. If we had like 3 people in, say, the product department, like the chance that all 3 separately would click on these ads within the last 30 days was very low, okay? So we were seeing that companies were converting, that we could associate them because we were seeing impressions on certain, like campaigns or campaign groups, but we weren't seeing any clicks, but they still booked a demo. Right? So it was clearly this one single person that decided, oh, this is a good fit, let's book a demo. But if they didn't book a demo, this click wasn't captured anyway. So we moved from this old campaign structure to a new campaign structure where we had to compromise on something. We decided to compromise on this persona level segmentation. And anyway, in our case, as I mentioned at the beginning, we target a lot of different personas, but their responsibilities actually overlap. Okay, so who's responsible for user onboarding and feature adoption? Well, in some companies, it's the product team. In some companies, the product growth team. In some companies, it can be the customer success. In some companies, it's the product marketing manager that is responsible for onboarding and like adoption of the new features they're also launching. So this overlap complicated things. And I think, again, we overfitted with this structure where we were showing certain messaging only to one persona because we were convinced this is the persona that should be interested in this value proposition. But in fact, we were limiting ourselves. So in this new campaign structure, we decided to mix all the personas in the company together. And just segment our ABM campaigns into campaign groups by intent, right? So we were like, okay, whichever persona is responsible for this, if they see it and, click on it, that's great, but we're not going to structure our campaign groups by persona. Of course, on the whole ABM campaign level, we can decide to include or exclude specific personas. For instance, for the session replay and analytics ABM campaign, we are not including customer success into this at all because they're usually not using product analytics and watching session replays. So we're only targeting product, UX, like CXOs, right? So heads of departments, maybe engineering in this campaign. And then we're mixing all these personas and targeting them by job titles on LinkedIn. So we're using broad targeting instead of like matched audience now. And then grouping, as I said, the campaign groups by intent.
Got it. And when you say intent here, these are mostly sort of use cases or jobs to be done,
yes.
Within the product. And the way you're inferring this intent largely is based on clicks on the respective LinkedIn campaign. So if they click on some campaigns, that's your inference to say they are interested in this intent.
Yeah. At this point, it's very simple and straightforward. We want to layer more intent signals on top. So, for instance, actually, we have like a channel on Slack from factors, which, companies visited which pages. Okay. So, for instance, we do want to layer like many other intent signals on top of this. I think we will be using Clay for this and tapping into different solutions APIs to identify, for instance, like social media engagements with our content. We can pull that from Trigify. We want to definitely include website and high intent page visits. So we already have like groups of pages that make sense. But this is a bit of a complicated model. So for now, we've been just using LinkedIn engagements, like quantitative and qualitative. So which campaigns with which different intents this account has been engaging in, and passing that on with a workflow. We're pushing these engagements per campaign, right? So like quantitative engagements per company and qualitative which campaigns this company engaged in into HubSpot from Zen ABM. And then we have a workflow that basically assigns a tag to any contact in this company. Sorry, I'm jumping a little bit. I wanted to go back to Miro. Right, so if the company engaged in analytics, okay, and they engage like 3 times at least, right? We updated the ABM campaign stage on HubSpot to interested. We assign a BDR company owner. And then when the BDR start prospecting in this company, so looking for the relevant personas based on the job functions and job titles that we use for targeting on LinkedIn. Whenever this BDR creates a lead in this company, because we're also using HubSpot to reach out to prospects, this workflow assigns the intent to this lead. So when the BDRs send a certain email sequence or they are on a phone call with this prospect, they know what this company was interested in. So this is like for now a very simple MVP way of personalizing the outreach based on the LinkedIn engagements. In the future, as I said, we want to layer more intent signals on top of that, and ideally like use AI to generate quick summaries, what the company seems to be looking for based on all the different intent signals.
Got it. So then just to summarize this section, Emilia, so you have campaign group structured as, let's say, one ABM campaign, which could be for session recording or one large theme like that. You have specific job titles or personas which go in there. And then you have separate use cases for each campaign. And then you have assets.
Group.
So each campaign group, sorry.
No,
separate
campaign
use cases for each campaign group. And within that, you have different sort of messages, right? And like for example, you could have a video message, you could have a single image, you could have a by message I meant asset. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, assets, different asset types, but the same messaging, right? So when we have a session replay campaign group, all the videos, all the images, all the text ads, DM ads, thought leader ads are related to session replay. So this kind of pulls from campaign level engagements. We roll up to campaign group, right? Because the campaign group basically pulls engagements from all the campaigns that are in this group, which means that we are able to collect a lot more signals on campaign group level than individual campaign level.
Got it. Understood. Now, just moving on. So in terms of, and we started speaking maybe around 3 months back. So could you also talk about, let's say, how you're leveraging factors today in this entire process?
Yeah, sure. So kind of the main reason why we wanted to, look into factors was because we noticed that LinkedIn is not spreading our impressions equally between the different companies, but it tends to, and this is sort of reflected in here, like the highest levels of engagements fall on the largest companies, because the largest companies have the most employees that meet the criteria that we are using for persona targeting, right? So, what LinkedIn tends to do is that it whacks up to 80% of the impressions based on the budget that is allocated to a specific, campaign group onto these really, really large accounts. So a massive bias that these larger companies, as we said, we are targeting typically, 50 to 1,000 employees. But hey, LinkedIn sometimes still lets some other accounts through, which is annoying, but it does it. And this is not, kind of a bug. We were even like talking to their developer support about it. They're just like, oh, it happens. Yeah, that like we do something outside of your targeting for whatever reason. So we wanted to make sure that, like these large companies don't eat up the whole campaign budget, right? Because then we have 80% of our impressions spent on just free accounts. And maybe they are not in the market, they are not interested, it's not relevant. So like we felt that our campaigns might be underperforming because a lot of the companies we are targeting are actually not seeing the ads. So what we did with factors, and this is pretty cool, we segmented our ABM target lists by employee size brackets. Okay, so we have these sort of smaller companies that are getting fewer impressions based on and fewer clicks, like it's the same for all company size because it's a pretty generous click cap, but the impression cap is really correlated with the company size. Okay, so we are aiming to show each ad to each like audience member around 4 or 5 times. So we kind of created basically algorithm is a big word, but like a formula basically that if we know we have roughly 5 assets per campaign, right? And so if there are 50 employees and 50 times 5 assets times 5 impressions that we're targeting, like what is roughly the number of impressions we want to show per company. So based on that, we arrived at these impression caps that we set on factors to limit, like in a sensible way, how many times we should be showing these assets to like companies in these size brackets. And that has really helped. We saw our engagement rates really increase. So I have some ad reports here for like the newer campaigns that we launched after implementing factors like Pendo 2025. This is the campaign that we actually launched with factors to compare it against Pendo 2024 with similar assets. So here the CTRs are actually much higher than in the other campaign with the same assets. Obviously similar audience targeting in terms of titles, in terms of company sizes, simply because more companies are actually seeing the ads, right? Previously, it was like one company was seeing the ad, like all their employees that fit the criteria, which was not very smart. Now we have a broader spectrum of companies, and some of them may be actually actively looking for a solution like that. Yeah. So this is
MJ, could you talk
improving
about
the CTRs.
yeah, sorry to interrupt. MJ, could you
Sure,
talk
yeah.
about are you willing to share how much has the CTR increased or CPM decreased?
The CPM decreased around 40%, so it is a lot cheaper. It's a combination of factors, pun unintended. So factors is one factor why it decreased. Another factor is moving from the matched audience, which was much smaller, because the match rate is never 100%, right? So like you're lucky to get like 70-80% match rates. So the audiences tend to be smaller. Now we're targeting actually more people in the company, and this makes it cheaper. And definitely the impression caps also helped distribute the impressions better across the target audience. So both of these factors, I believe, they contributed to around a 40% decrease in CPMs and an increase in click-through rates.
Got it. And click-through rates increased as well by around maybe 20% or something. Would you have that number handy?
I don't have the percentage increase specifically. We could like just look at the CTRs here. Yeah, this is the same ad. Okay. This is with a matched audience. Okay, so contact list and without impression caps. And then this very same ad has, as you can see, an average CTR of what across this time period, like 0.22%. Okay, when we look at the same ad right now, it's 0.57%. Okay, so more than double the CTR.
More than double. Got it. Understood.
For this
Understood.
specific ad. And we saw our
Got it.
averages go above like our benchmark. Our like target was 0.45%. Now they are like at least 0.5.
Got it. Now, those are phenomenal numbers, like in terms of 40% drop in CPMs as well as more than doubling of CTRs. I know we have five
Yeah.
minutes, Emilia. So just to kind of circle back, so now you have implemented the structure. You have scoring of accounts based on engagement, progressively moving them. At some point, you assign BDR owners. They are reaching out. They also know what
Yeah.
intent or what topic this company was interested in, so that the reach out is relevant. There is always this final question of how do you actually measure the success of a program like this, right? Like, are you looking at like actual click-through conversions from LinkedIn, or are you looking at only those landing pages and any inquiries you get from that? How are you kind of measuring the success of this program in a way that is aligned with the rest of the executive team?
Yeah, so again, we decided to simplify because, again, like exact attribution is extremely hard. Yeah, we even at some point created a separate lookalike domain, right? And we were using that as the landing page. So if, the demos or trial signups came from this domain, then we knew it had to be the audience that is being targeted with the ads, right? Because they could only see this domain from the ads. So like we didn't have the cross-domain issue. We also used the separate domain for retargeting because we knew that 100% of the visitors, it was a no index, no follow. All pages on this domain were no index, no follow. So we knew we shouldn't be getting organic visitors from SEO, from search to this domain. So any assets that we used, including blogs, would be only visited by people we were targeting from ABM ads. However, people still they can just remember your brand. They can, like search you on Google and still go to the main domain and click through from there. It's also like in the mid-market to enterprise segment, the sales cycles are longer. So we really see that like things start happening on average after 57 days after launching the campaign. That's when this is like the average time when we start seeing deals, so demos and then deals opened from the ABM. So what we are doing is very simple attribution. If the company was in the ABM campaign, we basically upload all the companies that we're targeting to HubSpot, right? Already have them in the SAM, but we add them to a specific ABM campaign into the identified stage. So we basically mark on HubSpot that we identified this company for this ABM campaign. From that date, when they enter the identified stage on HubSpot, within like literally a couple of days, 48 hours, we start the ads for this company list. And then if the time window within 180 days of that time window, we get a demo, trial, or deal from this respective company, we update the respective ABM stages in accordance with our account scoring. But we also then attribute this pipeline and revenue from these companies to this specific ABM campaign, right? Because yes, of course, there's some degree of potential randomness. Oh, and we also have an impression cap. So, right, we're pushing the impressions for these specific campaign groups, right, in this ABM campaign and the ABM campaigns altogether. And on company level, if there are at least 10 impressions, right, then we attribute it as ABM influenced revenue. Yeah.
Got it.
So they may still come
Understood.
from inbound. If they come from the BDR outreach and the BDRs create a deal after a conversation, right, then we know, okay, the BDRs facilitated this deal and they get credit as well. But if they came from inbound, whichever domain they came from, and they have at least 10 impressions and are within this 180-day time window of entering the ABM campaign, we assume that this is ABM influenced revenue.
Got it. No, I agree that a simple approach is much better. So I think what you have solved here is 2, 3 problems in terms of like, you don't have to have a mutually exclusive sort of revenue pool of what came from inbound, like search versus ABM versus what was booked by BDRs. Like everyone has a role to play. But the ABM influence revenue is companies who have seen at least 10 impressions and from a particular campaign group, and then within 180 days of them starting those campaigns, there is like a deal booked, right? I think I believe that approach, like the general influenced approach, you can obviously play around with the thresholds and whatever, like come up with a more complicated logic, etc. That is always in my preferred approach as well, rather than saying, oh, if someone replied to a BDR, then that's in a different bucket altogether, right? Like the moment you start cutting it out that way, then it's just so hard. Like for example, if I take my own instance, around 20% of the signups that sign up for Factors, they say that they saw our LinkedIn ad, but then they did not click on the ad and come to the website, right? They came directly, they came organically, they even came via search. But then in a form, they always say that, around 20% say that they've come from LinkedIn, right? So we use a very similar methodology. I think it's simple, it's clean, and you don't have to kind of try to cut the cake in terms of mutually exclusive. But did you have to drive a lot of alignment to get to the stage with the rest of the team?
Yes, absolutely. So at first, the RevOps team especially wanted to have like an extremely clean cut attribution, separate the BDR, like generated ABM deals from, they didn't even treat the LinkedIn influence deals as any influence, because they were like, oh no, this is like, what if they came from inbound? What if they, like we need to separate inbound. But as you're saying, like, especially when you understand how, for instance, HubSpot's contact level attribution works and how, LinkedIn API works with these like data privacy restrictions, then you realize that a lot of these, even the clicks, you said they didn't click, but maybe they clicked, but you can't capture this click, because if it was a single person in the company, and sometimes it's enough that the decision maker that is currently like in pain and is looking for this solution sees the right ad at the right time, they click on it, but you would never attribute this click at all, because LinkedIn API won't send any feedback on this. They will send you a 0, right? Because it's not enough in terms of like the privacy regulations, and they can only send clicks from free people, and the minimum is 3 basically clicks. So anything below that you won't see in a specific time frame. Also, when it comes to contact level attribution on HubSpot, like this contact needs to have, I only realized after already paying for like HubSpot professional marketing and setting it all up and thinking I will be able to attribute specific people, right, in the company to the conversions. And it then turned out that the click needs to, the demo booking or the like conversion event, however you define it. So it can be trial, sign up, demo booking, or, like even a specific form fill. The form fill needs to happen in the same session as the ad click, right? Like same session, so within 30 minutes. It's even when you like click on something, then you get distracted, you go make some tea, la-di-da, talk to your spouse, already gone. This click is already not going to be attributed, right? That person needs to have accepted your cookies. That person can't have been using an ad blocker, right? So all these steps, all these conditions need to be met. And we are seeing a huge attrition. We are still seeing contact level attribution in HubSpot, but there is a massive gap, like a delta, between the number of demos that we attribute from like this indirect, company level attribution versus contact level attribution.
Yeah, the session point is a particularly tricky one, because as you said, like it's not like people jump onto the website and then they are like immediately booking a demo, right? They're probably going through your page, and then someone pings them on Slack, they go somewhere else. It happens to every one of us. And
they maybe
the
talk to
moment
their
it's like
colleagues.
yeah. And the moment that goes away, you're losing all of that history in HubSpot. And a lot of customers who tell me that in HubSpot I'm not able to see contacts coming in, and I keep telling them, if you start evaluating ABM campaigns that way, you would not be able to run it, right? It's just going to be impossible for you to kind of get results that you can justify, right? So
exactly.
Emilia, thanks a lot for sharing this. I think there are a couple of questions, and I know we are over time here. Emilia, are you okay to take another 2-3 minutes as well?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So I think one question from Nihal was, how were you able to differentiate between low intent and high intent engagement on LinkedIn, and how do you modify your messages accordingly? So could you talk about how is the messages different in those interested versus consideration sort of stages maybe, and how did you define them?
That's a great question. The way we solved for it is that we created a taxonomy for the campaign names and campaign group names. Okay, so we know which campaigns are running for the aware audience or just like identified audience. These are the awareness stage campaigns, which are, as I mentioned at some point, a bit broader, a bit more like clickbaity, more like focusing on the problems, pain points, rather than the product, right? Because we're making this assumption that if someone has never heard about our brand, right, or potentially that might be the case, they're not going to book a demo, right? We're just saying, hey, Userpilot is a great platform, book a demo, right? What does the platform do, right? We need to educate the audience a little bit first about the pain, like see who even has the pain, right? And then when we have identified that, oh, these people are engaging with the ads that have the pain, or at least have seen a lot of these ads, and then we're gonna maybe, we don't do anything based on impressions yet, right? We only do things based on engagements and clicks. So if the company has 3+ clicks, I think 5+ engagements with this awareness stage content, we determine that they are showing some interest, and we pull them out of the awareness stage audience and push them into the interested audience. And there we talk a little bit more about the solutions. So how our product solves these problems, right? And, once they showed some conversion event, we're going in for the kill, and we still show them ads, but they're all like testimonials, case studies, right? Results you can get, right? Userpilot security requirements, etc. So it's all encoded in the campaign names, right? So we know based on the engagements, if we captured these engagements, we push them into the next stage, and we push them into the relevant ads based on the intent.
Got it. I think a related question is, how did you go about creating all of this content for these various funnel stages? Did you already have it, or did you have to kind of, make that into the plan for ABM and create all of this?
Yeah, we are creating all of this. I can again very quickly share my screen and show you kind of the database that we built for this on Notion. Am I sharing my screen?
Yeah. Can see your screen.
Yeah. So we have this database on Notion with ABM campaigns, plans, and assets. And essentially, we created different properties here. So ABM campaign property, we have them broken down by their respective ABM campaign. And then what is the category? Is it related to a feature, or is it related to a benefit, or is it related to a testimonial, right? What is the intent? Is it high intent, mid intent, low intent? The channel is always LinkedIn in this case. What is the CTA? Who is the asset owner, right? And what are the personas? Now we have all the personas combined, so it's also always showing combined. And then the intent, right? So this is what helps us identify what this person is interested in. And we basically create all the asset one by one. We have a lot of people in the marketing team work on this. We show them some inspirations from, other ads we liked. And then we create a concept, we create the messaging, the asset owner creates the concept and briefs the designer, and the designer creates the ads, right? And then they mark the brief and the design as done right here on the database. And once that is done, the asset launcher basically takes the design, takes the copy, and pushes the ad in the relevant, campaign and campaign group on LinkedIn.
Got it. I think one of the points that a few people have raised is that the images were not quite clear in some cases. So what we'll do is we'll actually, send more sort of high fidelity screenshots of each of this. So we will ensure to send it across to you or put it as a comment on the live as well. So that you have access to that. I think even the Miro, and I'll get in touch with you, MD, and kind of get that done. One last question that was there is, did you face an issue of drop off between clicks from LinkedIn to the website? And hence, how effective was the retargeting play on Google, right? So were you able to build a reasonably large retargeting audience in the first place?
We were able to build a large enough retargeting audience after like 2 months of running the campaigns. The problem was that, again, I don't know, like Google does not seem to be doing a great job, again, identifying these visitors, maybe, or maybe it's the bot traffic, but we saw that the retargeting ads seemed to work at first. We were getting a lot of clicks on the retargeting ads, and we were so happy, like, yay, people are really interested, they're clicking elsewhere. But then we weren't getting any conversions from these clicks, and we noticed we were actually getting a lot of spam form fills. So, like these spam bots filling in our demo booking form, or trying to, because we had a email validation solutions in place. So we would exclude such form fills, not to clog our AE's calendar with like bogus demo bookings. But this was happening, and we noticed that the time on page was like 2 seconds. So it was literally a lot of bots going in and spamming our forms. So we stopped doing retargeting on the display ad network altogether. We are obviously, by nature of how the ABM campaign is structured, retargeting these accounts that are showing interest back on LinkedIn with the next stage ads. And on the Google retargeting, we're using YouTube. But again, we had to upload our list of very specific placements, because when we initially just wanted to retarget on YouTube, and we like marked what the interests should be, so we let like the Google algorithm choose the channels, it was choosing a lot of like kids channels, for instance, because the target audience is going, and they have kids, they're in the age when they're showing their kids Peppa Pig on their like Chrome profile, for instance. But like obviously their 4-year-old son or daughter will not book a demo with Userpilot while watching Peppa Pig. So there were a lot of these placements that really made us laugh, because we realized we were showing on a lot of kids channels. And whenever we were doing like manually excluding them, but then Google was still adding more of them. And it was like playing whack-a-mole, that you couldn't keep up with excluding like bad placements, because this is where our audience goes. They do watch Peppa Pig a lot.
Peppa Pig, yeah.
But yeah, it just wasn't a good fit. So we had to, again, stop it, create a list of placements, right? And say, hey, we only want to show on these specific YouTube channels. But since we are a niche company, right, there just aren't enough for this to have made any like big impact at this point.
Got it. Understood. I know we stepped over time. I think we were 15 minutes over. Thanks everyone for staying around. And Emilia, thanks a lot for so openly sharing all of these learnings that you've had going through this journey. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure a lot of our audience would find it useful. Everyone who's commented on the images being blurry, we'll definitely send across high resolution images along with the recording. And ensure that that's added as a comment into the live as well. So please wait for that, and I'm sure it'll be worth it for each one of you to kind of see how these campaigns were structured. Emilia, if someone had questions, I presume they could always ping you, reach out to you, just to kind of learn more.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm hanging out on LinkedIn a lot, so looking forward to connecting with all of you there. Hopefully this was valuable. I know it was a lot, but yeah, ABM is a lot. Praveen will tell you. So yeah, looking forward to continuing the conversations and answering any questions in the comments or like on LinkedIn.
All right. Thanks, Emilia. Thanks once again. And thanks, everyone, for staying on. I hope this was useful. As I said, we will share the recording and more high-fidelity screenshots with all of you. If there are any questions, please feel free to reach out to Emilia and me, and maybe we can do one more session going into the next stage of the ABM journey.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Looking forward to sharing updates. Thank you so much for having me, Praveen.
All right. With that, I think we've come to the end of the show. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.